I wouldn't mind elaborating just a little bit on the Michael Kovac connection. This man does not know the Lord, does not know the Messiah. Wonderful man, very benevolent. Not to us. Word of Life has not been the recipient of one forint. But he has really loaned his influence. And in a country like that, just coming out of communism, to have contact with people in government was an unusual thing. And Word of Life was able to become an independent entity, largely because of the government contacts that this man afforded for us. And couple that with all of the contacts in the church, especially the Baptist churches in Hungary, and the early people there was John Vitzion and many of these folk. They wanted to see Word of Life succeed. They were just restrained terribly by the restrictions from Miklos and the State Office of Church. And Michael Kovac enabled us to get around those things and recognized by the government. In addition to that, I would say Kovac Zoltan. We used to refer to him as the young capitalist, and because he was pushing the edges way back when it was a communist government. He was running a construction company and doing things you weren't supposed to be able to do, and he was pushing the edges before us, literally. He became at Menedek, with Menedek and the castle that he bought, literally on his own. He became the first Christian organization, non-profit organization to exist in Hungary, I believe. And we followed his pattern. And so there were people like that. And I want to say about Dr. Harmata on the board of directors. I'll never forget when we first met him. It was in the 40th anniversary of the Baptist Union. It was in 1985, 84 still. And Jack was there, and we had a translator. And they were having a debate between some communist ideologues at the University of Debrecen and Dr. Harmata. And the translator, who had escaped in 1955 and was very nervous in being there, he was translating, and he stopped translating, and he said, "Oh my, this man is very, very brave, very brave." And I said, "What did he say? What did he say?" And Harmata had stood before all the people and said, the deviant problem, which is a problem for the government then of youth, the deviant problem is a social problem, but first of all, it is a sin problem. Sin in the evil hearts of men and women. And, wow, everybody just sort of took a breath. And I remember thinking, Lord, if you ever allow us, only my second time in the country, if you ever allow us to do anything in this country for you, I want that man to be on our board. He is a brave man. And every man on the board, Akos Bukovsky, and then Daniel Monos, a pastor, and Geza Baci, and Zoltan Kovac, and now Kalman Mazaros, and all of these men are great, great men that really have been a great asset to the ministry of Word of Life all these years. And I want to applaud them. I praise God for them. Another incident that I remember very well, we had signed a contract, an initial contract with the government to exist. A month later, we were back there looking at some properties, and I'm not sure even who had found this Tolmash property. We had looked at many other properties. The government even flew us all over the country in one of their government aircraft looking at properties out at Kishkora and places like that. And we had hoped the government would give us property because of what we were going to do in their country. And but when Tolmash came along, I I knew that Word of Life, from Word of Life's perspective, we couldn't go anywhere unless the director then of Word of Life were a part of it. And he had to be. That was just a given. And Harry Ballback had never been to Hungary before. And he had a very busy schedule. And we thought, how are we going to get Harry there? And Harry came and made room in his schedule, and he came. And I'll never forget when he set foot on that Toolmarsh property, lights just came on inside his eyes as he looked around, and he could envision then what could be there in Hungary. And that afternoon we met with the SOT trade union. And I had explained to them what Word of Life was, what we were going to do. And we had, in my heart, I had expected that we might have to come up with about as much as, I'm thinking, how much money could we come up with? Well, $6,000 a month just to rent that property. And then in the course of the conversation, it became evident that when they were asking, well, if you had this camp there, what would you do? We told them what a day at Word of Life Island was like. Well, if we were able to do something with you, would the children of the SOT trade union be able to come? We said, of course, like anybody else. And it became evident that they were thinking way ahead of me. And they said, well, if we should lease you the property, when would you be ready to do something? And Harry Ballback about jumped out of the seat, and he said, what about right now? And I'll never forget that. And I'm thinking, yes, Harry, that's great. What about right now? You're the boss. And he's saying, what about, let's do it right now. And Harry said, could we get a contract, at least a pre-contract together here today? Because they were thinking if we would just take 400 of their kids into our camp free of charge, there'd be no charge for the lease. And this was all unfolding. And Harry seemed to be just edging them on. He said, we want to sign a contract before we leave this meeting today. And I'm thinking, whoa, Ballback, where did you come from? And I knew where he was coming from, and it was marvelous to watch. And they said, well, yes, I think we can. And right that day, they had a contract, a rough one, and Harry put his signature on it. And that was a day of rejoicing. And it couldn't have happened had Harry not been there at that moment and at that time. And another person that was very key in all of this was Ildiko. From the very get-go, the forming of the board, everything, this lady lawyer, very smart lady lawyer, was there and had her hands into everything. And she understood the Hungarians like none of us Americans did. And I praise God for Ildiko, who just hung in there for a lot of years through ups and downs and ins and outs. And so there are many people that you don't have time to listen to today that have been a part of making that great, I call it the miracle of Hungary.